What if pain you're carrying isn't just yours? What if it's inherited, misunderstood, or waiting to be healed in a way you've never imagined? Today's conversation is about trauma, not just understanding it, but working with it, healing through it, and learning to live fully despite having it. So the questions that came up from some of the listeners, some colleagues and friends, we're going to unpack a little bit of the trauma effects on the nervous system and how it shapes the way we think and the way we feel. The question really comes down for viewers that don't really understand what trauma is. A lot of times what I've seen, I don't know if you would agree, trauma is used for so many different things. People are sometimes misusing the word. How do we define trauma?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Trauma is anything that is too big, too fast, too overwhelming for somebody's nervous system. So it's really more of a refined, complex answer because trauma isn't what people think it is. If we're talking about things that are just too difficult for someone's nervous system, that gets really individualized. So I'm going to start with people's nervous systems first. So all of us are born with our set temperament, with our given temperament, the way we're wired. Some research or a lot of research and talk about how that comes about, our specific temperament, but a genetic load does play into that. Our life in utero plays a role in that. What the parent was going through while the fetus is in utero, while the baby's in utero. And then when that baby's born, they have their set temperament. And then the next really important part is because the brain and the spine, the brain stem, which is like connecting you to the spine and the rest of your nervous system, is not developed yet. A lot of it is developed once you're born, but the rest is developed within your attachment and relationship and interactions with your primary caregivers, really the mom. And then of course dad and grandma and grandpa and everyone else that comes along with it. But that's, again, why it's so important to make sure that the mothers are okay, because they're directly impacting brain development. So it starts off with the temperament, but then that's where the nurture and nature thing comes in. The brain is actually developing in tandem with the interactions of the mothers, especially in the first 2 years. The biggest thing that I try to bring in with moms is the concept of self-compassion. So wherever they could, whatever it is they're going through, to see if they can just take a few minutes and just go easy on themselves. Just whatever you do is just an investment. The more you can breathe, just so there's that the brain development that I'm talking about, which is, so it's like the temperament, their brain development in tandem with moms and dads also, and the rest of the family. And that's when human beings start to develop their attachment styles, the major attachment styles, which is secure, insecure, avoidant, disorganized. That's really when that develops. But also your cognitive mind develops within your interactions actually with the parents. So if I'm dealing with someone who has postpartum depression or is being really put into circumstances that are very stressful or whatever the case is, and they're not able to give that child the attunement that they need. They're not mirroring the child's feelings, and then the child doesn't get a sense of self. So their feelings are not reflected back to them, and very often that's where the seeds of shame are planted. Feelings of not feeling worthy can get planted on from really, really, really early on. So that's why, again, it's so important to take care of, for us to take care of mothers, not to kind of stress them out with it, but for us to really, build a community around them. When they say it takes a village, it really means that. And then as they're getting older, in terms of trauma, there are two types of trauma, just to explain to people what that is. There's the small T traumas and the big T traumas. So the small T traumas are the developmental traumas that I'm talking about that start like in utero, throughout childhood, growing up. Those are the small T's that happen over time. Then there are the big T traumas, which is like the war in Israel right now, bombs falling, natural disaster, things of that nature, losing a family member suddenly. Those are like big T traumas. And many times when we're looking at a person's nervous system, what might have been too big, too fast, too overwhelming for a person's nervous system, it might even look to our eyes when we say trauma. Maybe they weren't in a space where they were feeling attuned to. Because let's say mom doesn't have such a sensitive temperament, but the child does, and she's not really sure how to tune into this child. The child doesn't feel attuned to, their needs don't get met, their nervous system is not getting attuned to, and that in and of itself could already be considered a trauma. It's just not always such a goodness of fit, and so it's really complex. And then when I peel back the layers, I'm like, I don't know if this person was attuned to in the way that they especially needed to be attuned to. And it's not fault finding, it's seeing how can we build in those interventions to help them out now. How do I help them attune to themselves and to mirror themselves in the way that they need to be attuned to? And then, so it's about first like stabilizing the client from wherever they were, if they were too dissociated, or if they're ruminating too much, or if they're highly anxious, or it's targeting those things first. With each client it's different, but it's with grounding, it's with creating safety, it's my use of self. My relationship with them is first and foremost. With any modality that I use, my relationship with them is what I would say the biggest key to their healing, because most of the clients that I'm dealing with have relational wounds, and relational hurts heal in relationships. So that's really my biggest, I would say, tool that I use in addition to anything else. The parts the body's built to heal. The parts come up with it, we just kind of facilitate it, but the nervous system will bring you that material as time goes on. And with sensory motor, somatic experiencing, even parts work, whatever it is, my main goal is not the graphic details. It's more about how did it affect this person's nervous system. So it's gentle, it's discreet, it's at this person's will. And another thing with trauma, people want to heal very fast, but you need to be so careful with someone's nervous system. I need them to be whole when they're walking out and during the week. So I work very slow and very with a lot of caution. And there's this saying in trauma, slower is faster.
Absolutely.
Things. And as much as I can, in addition to the deep work that I'm doing, it's almost like don't take yourself so seriously. Like, some really simple things can go a very long way. And it's like, keep it simple, stupid type of thing, like Judge Judy, you know what I mean? So if there are certain friends who are constantly putting you down, let's think about that for a minute. If there's something that is not great with your health, what's happening there that we can kind of move this along? Right. If you're sensitive to certain sounds, certain lighting, whatever the case is, before you go to a wedding, let's have a plan, right? Because that's like social anxiety stimulation, that sensory stimulation. There's so much going on. Like, what do you need to make your life more comfortable? In addition, I like to teach clients skills specifically for them that they need. I want them walking out with, like, they always laugh. They get these texts from me after sessions of like, these are the list of things for you that might be helpful for you this week. And it's like, oh, I can turn to these things of like, what can keep me regulated? So I like them to have like a list of like 10 skills on their fridge, on their mirror, on their, wherever they go, on your phone, of things that will help keep you regulated. And usually those things are like, include the 5 senses. So like, is there a gum that works for you? Is there water that works for you? Is there a certain smell, like a lotion that you have with you? Is there some fuzzy thing you have with you? Like, keeping their environment, being mindful about their internal and external environment when they're not in session with me matters a lot. to me, if that makes sense. And that's not, rocket science, but it goes a long way.